Hello everyone, and welcome to this review of the Lewis Bell Hitmaking for Producers class on Studio.com. So as somebody who is a longtime studio veteran, I think I've been with this platform for over 2 years, like since it began, and I've taken virtually all of the music production, music related courses on this platform, so I just wanted to give my perspective on the Lewis Bell class. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about how it compares to the other courses as well. So, Hitmaking for Producers with Lewis Bell. As you probably know, Lewis Bell is a very well-known producer who has worked with the likes of Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez and Camila Cabello and all of these very prominent singers and musicians. Here's some of the songs that he's worked on. And this course, if you're not familiar with Studio, the way it works is that you've got 30 days to go through the course, to learn all of the material that the teacher is teaching, and you produce 2 or 3, depending on which class you're in, final projects of your own. So in Lewis Bell's course, you're going to produce 2 polished songs, as you can see right here. One of them is just going to be a simple, straightforward song that you write yourself, you can perform it yourself, record it, etc. The second song is one that you do with a collaborator. So Lewis Bell actually invites a friend into the studio and you get to watch the two of them work out a song together. And so let's just show you a little bit of what this course looks like on the back end. When you sign up for the course, you're going to have access to the dashboard where you're going to see the first part is a pre-class onboarding and introduction, where you have a welcome video, you create your profile, etc., etc., tools and equipment, getting the most out of your peer group. Then you've got part 1, end-to-end songwriting, and part 2, crafting a song for an artist. So the way this class works is it's broken up into projects, right? And each project releases on a timed table, I guess is what I would call it. So after you finish part 1, part 2 will be released. You're not going to be able to see the videos and projects in part 2 until you finish part 1, until day 15 or something like that. So the first half of the month, the first half of the 30 days, you work on end-to-end songwriting. You get to watch Lewis Bell walk through his process as he creates a song from scratch. And in between, you have these projects, 1A, 1B, and you're going to be creating your own song alongside him. And the nice thing about monthly is that you don't create a song, you don't watch all the videos and then create a song from 0 to 100%. You actually break it down into pieces. They break it down for you, and they say, okay, so for the first assignment, we're just going to write the initial track. Then we're going to create the melody. Then we're going to do the chorus and lyrics, and so on and so forth. And you just follow the steps. And then in between, as you submit these projects, mini projects, you also get the opportunity to get and give peer feedback. So the teacher himself, Lewis Bell, he's not going to be the one giving you feedback. It's going to be your classmates. And you are also going to be involved in this. That's actually an assignment here. You're going to be giving peer feedback on certain melodies. And if you're curious, you can go to my peer group and you can actually see like the names of the different peers you're going to have here. And then you can see what people have produced and the different comments and stuff like that here in this section of the course. If you go to the My Journey section of the course, you're going to see what you have created, all of the different assignments that you've posted, and you can also see what other classes that you've taken here. Okay, and then the class home is just the front page, and it'll show you all of your unfinished tasks and what is coming up. So I think for this review, let's talk a little bit about some pros and cons of taking the class with Lewis Bell, because my purpose is to let you know what this class is like so you can make your own decision. I'm not going to push you one way or the other, right? So some pros of taking the Lewis Bell class on Studio is, like I said, you get to be a fly on the wall and you get to watch him work through his process. Sometimes creators and artists, when people ask them for advice, they have their set advice. They're like, oh, do this and do that, and I this is my process. But the problem is a lot of times people forget their processes because they're parts of their processes that become second nature, and they even forget that they've done it. You know, it's just a habit. But for somebody who's a beginner, some of the things that these pros take for granted, we don't actually know how to do yet. So it's really helpful to watch them actually go step by step from 0 to 100%, and they show you everything. That's the reason why a lot of these videos are like 2 hours long, because they show you every single step that they go through. And the video, it'll it'll show you a screenshot of their computer screen as they're working, and you can actually see what they're doing, what filters they're using, how they're recording, how they're chopping, how they're doing all these different things. So that's super helpful. I love the fly on the wall aspect of studio, and that's what has kept me coming back to this platform again and again for all these different classes, because I haven't really found another platform that does that. So number one is the fly on the wall aspect of the course. The second pro, I would say, is the peer feedback. So the ability to give and receive feedback, to see other people working through the process and see how they interpret what the teacher's instructions are, is invaluable. You get to, sometimes you always have people who are better than you and people who are not as good as you, and both types of people can really help you on your journey to become a better musician. The people who are better than you can watch what they do or listen to what they do, and sometimes they'll give you feedback on your work and give you a lot of help and advice. And my experience going through a lot of these studio classes, not just from Louis Bell, but from all of these other teachers here, has been that I've gotten a lot of really helpful advice from my peers. And the process of giving feedback to your peers is also a really good practice for yourself. You get to think deeply about what you're doing or what they're doing. You can figure out what they're doing wrong or what they're doing right. And as you leave the feedback, it cements those ideas in your head so that you can use them better yourself. The third pro, I would say, is having that scheduled deadline. So the thing about creative people or creativity in general is that we often put things off. It's easy to procrastinate and say, oh, I'll do some music later when I'm not busy, when I have less chores or whatever. But the reality is life doesn't wait. Time doesn't wait for you. And so it's nice to have this 30-day broken down schedule where literally it'll say, okay, this thing is due on a certain day. This part is watch this video by this time, turn in this assignment by this date, etc. And there are actually consequences, for missing a deadline, because if you miss a deadline, it makes it less likely that your peers are going to be able to leave helpful feedback on your work because your work isn't out there yet, right? So it's helpful to have that deadline keeping you accountable and making you actually get things done. If it wasn't for studio, I don't think I would have created as many songs as I have in the past year or two. So there's that. And then the final pro, I would say, is just having a finished product is so satisfying. It's so easy to leave projects half done, half finished, floating around in the ether in your proverbial closet. But studio pushes you to actually finish projects. Even though, you're still learning, you might not, your finished project might not be up to your ideal standards just yet, but as you do more and more of these, as you keep practicing, as you keep putting things out there, it gets better and better. And I have definitely seen that in my own work, and it's so satisfying to have a finished song that you can listen to, that you can share with your friends, and not just have half-finished junk lining up your, cluttering up your computer. So those, I would say, are the 4 pros of taking the studio class. Particularly with Louis Bell, the thing about him is he's more for advanced producers. So talking about more specific to this particular teacher, if you are not already sort of familiar with music and your DAW, digital audio workstation, if you don't already have a foundation in music, I would say probably don't want to start with Louis Bell. If you want to take a music production class that's more for beginners, I suggest either the Pop Songs with Blanks class or the Complete Music Production with Andrew Huang class. Andrew Huang especially, I think he actually has experience as a music teacher with in-person students, so he really knows how to explain things. Like, he has this music theory class that he recorded that is in many of the other producers' classes, not in Louis Bell though, because like I said, Louis Bell is for more intermediate to advanced producers, so you're not going to see the Andrew Huang music theory beginner course in his class. But I think it's in Blank's class, and I think it's in some other classes like maybe HER or Kygo. I don't remember. Ryan Tedder, I think maybe it's in there. But yeah, if you're a beginner, you don't know anything about music theory, you're not really sure how to do songwriting, I would say music production beginners, start with Andrew Huang or Blanks. And if you want to do songwriting, start with HER, which is this one right here in the beginning. And then from there, you can move on to like Charlie Puth, Ryan Tedder, and then eventually you can go to Louis Bell. He's more of a, like I said, more intermediate to upper level music producers. Although, to be fair, all of the courses on studio are not overly advanced. You'll still be able to figure your way out. It's just that if you aren't somewhat prepared, you're going to have to do a lot more background research to figure out what you're doing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the cons. I would say for for studio, for Lewis Bell, the cons would be sometimes the peer group can be awesome, but if you happen to be put in with a peer group of people who are not super active, that's just luck of the draw. Sometimes other students may not be super interactive, so just be prepared for that. Do the best you can to be a supportive and interactive peer yourself, and that increases your chances of getting good comments and helpful remarks on your own work, but no guarantees. Another con is I think Studio used to not be a subscription model. It used to be you could just buy discrete classes and then you would have access to them forever. But now it's not that way. They have the subscription model where you pay monthly and then you have access to the courses that you've taken as long as you're still a subscriber. Personally, I'm not a fan of that model. Some people might like it though. If you're that type, then this is not a con for you, but for me it is. Another con is I said that having a deadline and schedule is really helpful. Sometimes it can be a little pressurizing, if you've got a lot going on and you are a little late, it happens. It's a little disappointing, but I would say even in those cases, just keep trying to keep up. Just put your work out there anyway. Don't fall down and stay down. If you miss a deadline, just get right up, put your work in, and try to meet the next deadline. It's fine. Okay, and then the final con I already kind of mentioned before, which is that Lewis Bell is for more advanced producers. So if you are more of a beginner, start with the easier classes first and work your way up. So that's my overall summary of the Lewis Bell course review. Overall, I am grateful I took this class. I'm very glad I did it, mostly just because I had another experience with Studio, another opportunity to create two finished products that I can be proud of, that I can be happy that I completed. So if you are also interested in taking a Studio class with Lewis Bell or with anyone else, feel free to use the link that you see on your screen or in the description below, and maybe you'll be able to create some really awesome songs that you can be happy with, such as this one.
A little more heaven and a little less hell. Just wanna give up, child, I can tell. But where there's life, there's hope, so listen.